You are listening to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. Join hosts Joe Sallin.
Speak of the devil, and he shall appear.
Trent Ham.
What is your major malfunction, nuts?
Andrew Dennison.
Get off my train!
And TC Reed.
Looks like we might be due for a big old storm of chaos.
And other guest outlaws as they discuss games and topics in the board game industry. All episodes of the GBU are recorded live. Follow us on YouTube for your chance to participate in future episodes. All future recordings and topics are posted on Board Game Geek Guild 2173.
And now it's time for the good, the bored, and the ugly.
Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, a podcast about board games. I'm the host of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, Joe Sallin. I'm joined here by two lovely co-hosts, one of them being out on the West Coast. How are you doing today, TC?
Doing fine. It's Thursday. One more day till Friday. I am a happy camper tonight.
For sure, man. Yeah, you also have your daughter's birthday coming up pretty soon, right?
Oh, yeah, this Saturday. We have her 14th birthday. Man, I'll tell you what, one of the hardest things to figure out as a parent is what to buy a 14-year-old daughter. Oh, my goodness. That's been fun.
Same thing I buy everybody.
Gift cards?
Board games.
Board games. Well, it's getting to the point at my house where it's like, Dad, are you going to buy me a board game? I'm like, no, I won't, even though I really, really want to. It's a tainted gift, I know. Just buy me some for Christmas.
For sure. Well, good to hear from you, TC. And we'll also be joined tonight by Trent, who's been with me on almost every single one of these 144 now episodes of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. How are you doing, Trent?
Pretty good. Let's do this.
Yeah, we're going to be talking tonight about Trent and TC's top games of 2017. So look forward to that, and it will be a gross time.
It will be gross.
It will be very gross. It will be all 144, a whole gross. All 144. So one of my favorite numbers. It really is. I did want to make an announcement here to anybody who's participated in our live chat. We have been joined by many different individuals from all over the place, and it's so awesome to hear from you. And last week, and actually not just last week, but weeks previous to that, we were joined by a chatter who, there was a lot of similarities that I could tell between the games that this chatter was, talking about just getting involved in the hobby. And I was like, wow, it's so cool that, with being new in the hobby, they found out about, kind of a smaller podcast, a smaller group. And, we just don't have a huge following in every single place. But, what we do have is really awesome. But I was surprised, that such a new gamer would be like that. And then the more this individual talked about the games they played, I was like, man, these are like all my favorite games that I love showing people that are new. Yeah, this is one of my students who's actually one of my gamers in my game club that we play right after school on Thursday night. So that's pretty exciting for me that he was interested enough to check out, and he's now been participating and been a part of the hobby. So if you see anywhere on the live chat, if you see anything from Hornet's Nest, you know that is a student of mine, and just wanted to say I don't know that he's there right now. We don't look like we have a whole ton of viewers yet kicking off, but if you listen to this one, welcome to the community, welcome to the hobby, and it's pretty excited to have you here. So anyhow, that's that was a huge. It really warmed my heart. And I'm so thick. My head is just so thick. It took me so long. It's a good thing I didn't go into one of the things I thought when I was a kid I would do, which is being a detective, because, man, things could just slap me right in the face, and I'd have no idea what they were. But so tonight we played Pandemic Legacy for the first time with the game group at the high school, and we played May. So we have already played up until April, and I played up until April last December with a totally different group. And my kids at the school, were just excited playing Pandemic. And I thought, you know what, this would be an awesome way to go. And holy crap, did we get totally swarmed and destroyed mercilessly. But we learned a lot about, had a good idea of what to do in the future. And just Pandemic Legacy, once you get into like April and May, has some really interesting twists and turns. So my kids at the game group loved it, and I look forward to more of those things. But, welcome Carter. That's one of my students, and I'm proud that he's come to join us here a few times. So anyhow.
That's the thing about Pandemic Legacy Season 1? If you suck really bad, you get to open a box.
Yay! Yeah, we just need to lose 3 more times, guys. Yeah. Then we're totally good to go.
Don't feel too bad if you're losing a lot, because something really awesome happens if you tank it. I know this.
Yeah. My kids are already talking to me about Season 2, and it's like, yeah, let's get through Season 1 first. But I'm not gonna lie, man, I'm kind of excited for the same thing myself.
Yeah,
to get to Season 2. So that's really interesting for me to the kids are really doing well. They're adapting characters that they did not create, though they did laugh at my character's name is Big McLarge Huge. They liked that, but but aside from that, the other characters' names were references that were totally lost on my students. But they just played it with they took it in stride and had a great time. So I was really happy for that.
Excellent. I want to hear when someone loses a character and has to rip it up.
I think they'd be happy to. I think they wanted to kill all of our characters, mainly because they weren't theirs. They wanted to create their own. So
sweet.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. I'll definitely report that to you, TC.
Excellent.
It definitely seemed like it's like a moment when, had I been really attached to my character, that would have been like a single tear rolling down my face.
As my daughter would say, epic tear.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, we are going to do some epic things here on this podcast, namely counting the best games of 2017. And before that, you're going to get a few other reviews as well. So you get some reviews that are not necessarily the best games of 2017, though I'll leave it up to to my co-host to decide their own. But we are going to be reviewing games. We'll then talk about those best games of 2017. We'll then be hyping some games that we're looking forward to coming up. And before we go any further, let's welcome you all, everybody who is looking for gifts this holiday season. This episode's going to air right before our actual before Christmas and everything. So your last minute Christmas gifts, you should check out GameSurplus.com, and you can do like overnight shipping and things, but it can be a little bit expensive. So hopefully a lot of you that have listened to the podcast are already on Game Surplus, and you can get a little bit more bang for your buck. If you go to the podcast picks for the good, the board, and the ugly, click on that, find some games that you like. When you're typing in coupon codes, you'll save 10% on all those podcast picks if you type in good, board, ugly picks, all one word. The case of the word should not matter, but type in good, board, ugly picks, and you'll be able to get not only some great games, but at a great price from an amazing retailer that's dedicated to customer service. Love you, Carmen. Just opened up a great, huge box. It was very well packaged, some of the best packaging in the entire industry. I would say the best. So you should check them out, GameSurplus.com. Welcome, Jerry. Jerry's here in our live chat, and everybody else who joins us. It's awesome to hear from you guys. Hopefully everything's been going well for you, as well as Joe from Pennsylvania. So good evening to you too, sir. Well, let's kick things off with hearing from you, TC, because you were missing from last week's podcast. And I think, as I recall, you were going to be reviewing the Nuns Walk Into a Bar, the dice game.
Yeah, it was very interesting. It was print and play. It was apparently there's only one copy in existence, and I seem to have it. Kind of didn't make the Kickstarter, didn't meet its goal. Got a prototype, but yeah, it's there. No, the game I want to talk about is one of my friends. I actually got his copy of Gloomhaven in. The second printing from they did a second Kickstarter for it, and it shipped out. My goodness, this game is something to behold. Just seeing pictures of it is nothing like actually seeing this thing in person. We actually took this thing to a scale and weighed it, and it came in at 22 pounds of game. And that's before we opened it up. So in case anybody who doesn't know what Gloomhaven is a cooperative dungeon crawl that I think Joe would really like, because guess what, Joe? There is no dice in Gloomhaven. None at all. You have a character, you pick 1 of 5, and you have a card system, and you have a little deck that gives you bonuses or minuses depending on who you fight. And you're going through different dungeons, and you're going through this giant campaign. And the campaign, Joe, get this. The campaign, I couldn't believe it. It's so huge that you're going to go through multiple characters to play this thing. You get 5 characters to choose from, and as you play the game and retire characters, you get to open up more characters. And there's like 17 characters in this thing. It's insane. I looked it up on Board Game Geek. This thing is ranked number 2 right now. Number 2. Pandemic Season 1 is still number 1, but wow. It is a very intriguing game, and I cannot believe how much you get for the price they were asking for it. It's unbelievable. So if you get a chance, I would be really curious to hear what you think of Gloomhaven, guys. It's pretty interesting game.
It's an interesting one for you to bring up, TC, and I dropped a little link here in the pop-out chat that's homework for you. I want you to click on that, and you might be able to see a little bit of, at least when I wrote this up in March, a lot of the things I had to say about Gloomhaven. So I have played Gloomhaven. I've played it about 40 times now. Ooh. And, it was the first, I guess, quote unquote, dungeon crawling game that made me feel like I wasn't a broken individual that couldn't enjoy, theme and a fantasy environment. So it was definitely a big game for me. And the woes of trying to get the same group of individuals together to play, every game in the campaign, because at this point we played, so many of that with the 4 of us together that, even just doing, you are able to play it with 2 and 3. You can scale it down even if you don't have a full group, but it just feels like we'd be like, it just wouldn't be the same, I guess. We wouldn't want to do that to the other guys. So we've been kind of on a bit of a limbo with that Gloomhaven campaign ever since like April when things got busy for the guy that owns the game, because it's kind of his busy season with everything. So it's hopefully going to come back to the table here when, now that it's starting to get to his slow time, because being a pilot, not many people want to go anywhere, especially when it's frozen here in the upper Midwest. So hopefully it'll come back and I'll be able to, see it, maybe about seeing the end of the tunnel, which I believe Trent has made it further than me. He's played Gloomhaven even more than I. So I know, Trent, at one time you were just kind of playing it because it was what your RPG group that you normally play RPGs and stuff with was playing. But I suppose it's been a little while since then. Do you have any updates?
I think here's my feeling on Gloomhaven in a nutshell. I think it's really good. I don't think it's as good as the hype it is getting. Mm-hmm. I feel like to an extent people are overlooking the flaws of it because of the things it does really, really well. And it does do some things really, really well. I feels like it makes the characters feel very distinct from each other. When you play a new character, it feels like a very different game. It handles the campaign thing brilliantly in terms of as you're going along and telling a long campaign. Where it fails out for me is that a lot of the scenarios feel very similar, and the characters, when you play them over and over and over, start feeling very samey. So I think it does some things really, really, really well, and other things it doesn't. And that really hasn't changed for me. I don't think that it will. I'm not objecting to finishing the campaign. In fact, I'm looking forward to it. But I don't think it's like... I don't think it's like... I am surprised... I feel like BGG right now is giving overemphasis to legacy games. Like, Pandemic Legacy and Gloomhaven are 1 and 2, and I just don't see it. So there you are.
Well, Carissa had some interesting critiques about it, and one of the things you guys would probably be able to answer is that she was just concerned that there wasn't going to be much of a story. It was just going to be a whole bunch of just fighting in dungeons. And, I can't go through that adventure guide. I don't want to ruin anything. I'm like, well, you may be right, you may be wrong. I don't know, but you guys might know.
There's as much story as you want there to be. You can play a role-playing game that's very mechanical and basically ignore the story and just try to win fights, or you can get really into the story. And the same thing's true with Gloomhaven. It's as much as you want to get into it.
Okay, that's kind of the feeling I got, and I can compare it to like Imperial Assault and Descent, and it's going over a lot better than those did. So, but the biggest critique I have of it is just the setup's insane. They're going through that box and setting everything up for a game is like, oh, I'm going to be here a while. It's going to take a bit.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those games that getting it out and playing and everything, it's almost like a miniatures game. There's just so many pieces, and you have to ready all these different things. I do think though that almost every little piece in the game, you're not just doing it out there for cosmetics. Almost everything does have like an impact on gameplay and go into some of the decisions you'll make. Though I agree with you, Trent. Like it is a bit of an inflation, and for me, I would say that I even personally have inflated it because it's just, like I said, I feel like it's really pivotal to me, and I'm getting to where I don't really even like ranking games or putting games above other games. Even though in the link that I shared in our pop-out chat here, I did, my top 152 games. It's really, like those games are like ballpark, those are, and that's why I did 152, because it was just an arbitrary number. It was just like when I felt like I had enough, I was just like, okay, I don't want to do anymore. It doesn't matter. Like I hate, quote unquote, making the cut. I hate it when you're like, well, this game isn't, doesn't belong in my best games. I don't like having to say like, this is a great game, but I could only choose 10. I like just being able to say everything that I wanted to put on here, I put on here. If I didn't put on here, it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means I didn't think about it, and that could be because I don't like it, because it's bad, in my opinion. But, I like Gloomhaven a lot, but comparing it to a lot of the other games you'll see on my top games, it is, I don't even know how to compare those things. But it definitely gave me an RPG experience for the very first time. I loved it, and it at least, I know for most people it kind of goes the other way around, where they enjoy like a lot of thematic games, and then they try a Euro because they already are in it. At least where I come from, at least in the upper Midwest here, most people coming in are like, ooh, Betrayal. I really love Betrayal, and then you can try to get those Betrayal players to try to play a strategy game. And they're like, actually, I do really like strategy. For me, I went at it from the opposite way. I was playing like Agricola, Terra Mystica, and I still hadn't played an RPG that I a campaign type experience. So Gloomhaven kind of did that for me. And I guess it holds a very special place in my heart. And that's why I put it as my top game out of all 152, TC.
Well, the thing I think got me more than anything was just the amount of content that came for the price. I was completely blown away by how much you got in this thing for the price they were asking, at least because I think he paid like $100 for it for the reprint. And I'm like, you got all this for $100? I paid $150 for Twilight Imperium 4th edition. I got like a third of what's in this thing. This is amazing. Wow. That is just wow. I mean, just the value you get for that game is just unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. Comparing it, even just like you said, like Twilight Imperium 4 was $150. You're talking Gloomhaven, I think, was even cheaper than that, and I just feel like you're talking about cards that each have individual unique feels, like Trent said, where it goes to the point where you're playing a different character, feels like you're playing a different game. So
yeah. And then the way the game the cards are how the game times, because you like have to, you slowly refresh. So you've got you can do a quick rest or a long rest. And the timer of the game becomes your deck of cards in your hand. Because you're like, dude, I could do all this awesome stuff. Oh, that goes away. Uh-oh. Guys, we got to hurry.
Yeah. It really is. Yeah. I love that too. And I would say that it has a lot of beautiful, simple Euro-style mechanisms with the thrill and frills and thrills of a thematic dice chucking game, but it just has the solid base. Though Trent has a very good point that I would agree with in a large way. Though I also feel like I just kind of fit right into maybe the group of individuals that are inflating this, and I'm kind of like, I guess I really, really like this, and this is the game I've been waiting for a very long time. So, kind of like one of those love at first sight moments.
Well, I'm glad I'm catching up to you guys. Sorry it took so long. I had to wait for the second edition reprint to come out from Cephal Affair. It finally got here last week, so I'm catching up.
I have a bone to pick here with Jerry. He just questioned whether or not Iowa was part of the upper Midwest. And sir, when I was from the southeast part of the state, you could have maybe said that and I'd have been like, maybe not. I lived right on the border with Missouri, but now I live north of I-80, which if you're unfamiliar, if anybody out there is unfamiliar with the interstates in the country, I-80 is a very important one because north of I-80, the snow does not melt when it falls in the winter. The snow actually sticks for a decent amount of time, and that's something I'm not used to. And yes, I feel like I got some upper Midwest credit. Yes, sir. I just drive like a few hours and I'm up in Minneapolis, which, dude, it's cold. I know you're from Wisconsin. I know this. And you know what? It was my Wisconsin friend that said there's no such thing as cold weather, just inappropriate clothing. So you know what? Yes, you get some stuff there. I love your cranberries, but I'd like to be considered a part of the group, if you will have me, of the upper Midwest. TC, you're just out of this one, man. You do not know. You have to deal with like an entire month of freezing cold weather. And that's just, it's part of the badge that you earn.
I grew up in Amarillo. It wasn't very warm there during the winter.
That's in northern Texas, TC.
Yeah, the Panhandle where the wind chill gets to like negative 3,000. Yeah, that's great.
Oh, boy, no, just no, you don't get that. No, you get like 6 months of fall and 6 months of spring. That's Amarillo. We get like our winter. You know what? George R. Martin lived in Iowa when he wrote the Game of Thrones books, and when he was living in Dubuque, Iowa, is when he came up with the idea of a place where it is winter forever. Where the winter season lasts for like years. Because if you've ever lived through a December, January, and February in the upper Midwest, oh man, there's a reason.
That explains a lot to me, Joe, right there. He came up with Game of Thrones while living in Dubuque, because clearly all the White Walkers are Wisconsinites.
Where's the wall?
Jerry. My parents and I
the
were going
Mississippi
to
River is the
Wisconsin
wall.
like two.
The Mississippi River is the wall, and all the Wisconsinites are White Walkers.
I think the wall is actually all those cranberry bogs.
I mean, the governor's last name is Walker. What more proof do you need?
Oh man.
Well, my wife grew up in Indiana, and she said winters were nothing like what was up there. So I'll give you your credit. I'm not going to argue with you on that. I like winters. I like it snowing. But okay.
So my family has this crazy tradition that we do over Christmas, and that's going north to Wisconsin. So we go up to Potosi, Wisconsin, which has this a nice little cabin, and almost every year that we've gone there, which has been 4 years now, when we go there, there's no snow. When we leave there, there's like 1.5 feet of snow. So, and Jerry was just mentioning that lake effect snow definitely does give some. There's definitely some more inclement weather that we don't have to deal with here in the western of the Great Lakes. That lake effect snow when you get like 6 to 8 feet dumping on places like Buffalo and whatnot. Oh man. So, and welcome Carter. Hey Carter, I did tell everybody that you're part of the game group that we do at the high school, and that you're just so taken away with the hobby that you're happy to be a part of this podcasting community and this board gaming hobby. So welcome. He's here in our chat now. And anyway, that was Gloomhaven that TC just talked about. Thank you so much for mentioning that, TC. And it makes it a perfect little transition, because speaking of those nifty little Euro, quote unquote Euro, I don't think Euro should have a stranglehold on on solid mechanisms. Neither do I think that American games or thematic games have a stranglehold on theme. But it's nice when you see an interesting little system to play with that has a lot of development put into it. And that's the case with this game that I'm going to talk about, which is called Mythic Battles Pantheon. It is a miniatures game at its heart. And what it does is you take a Greek god, and you are going to fight against an opponent's Greek god. It's kind of a war game, so it's You can tell when you're playing. It seems to be made mostly for 2 players, but with 4 players, it's more of a dudes on a map style game. But what you're going to have to do is first draft an army. And this is really cool because you get a certain amount of points and you spend it on units. Your units can be heroes, like Odysseus. You got monsters like the Hydra or Cerberus. And then you're always going to have one and only one god. And your god is going to be, if you lose your god, then you immediately lose the game. The game is over. Your opponent wins. So you're trying to either kill their god, and then there's also kind of like a capture the flag element where you can pick up these little crystals that are on the board, which give you special bonuses. Plus, if you get more of them, if you get a majority of the ones that are out, you end up with the win as well. So there's 2 ways to win the game. The way that you're actually going to activate, though, like if anybody's played, have any of you guys played like Memoir 44, or we talked about Commands and Colors on the long view? Have you ever played any of those games in the system now, the Commands and Colors?
My son
I got in Battle Lore.
My son loves Memoir 44.
Sure. You know how in that game, to activate units, you're going to be shuffling an entire deck, and then you each kind of draw out of this shared deck that has random like locations on the battlefield. Does that sounds kind of accurate, or?
Yeah.
Okay. In this game, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think in Commands and Colors this ever happened. It could have happened. But in this game, what you'll do is every time you draft a unit, you get a certain amount of cards. And those cards, literally, the only information they have on them is just a picture of that unit and then a number for how many total activation cards there are. You'll take all of those cards together, all of your units, all their cards. You'll put them in a stack. You'll shuffle that, and you'll add a certain amount of these cards that are called Art of War cards. Art of War cards are amazing, because if you ever draw them, you can immediately spend 1 to dig for any other card in your deck. So it'll replace itself with whatever card you need. Or you can spend 1 to like draw 2 cards off your deck. Or you can spend them to do things like activate special abilities. They are the basic currency of the game, but the amount of them that you get is dependent on which of the heroes and monsters and stuff you draft. Monsters tend to not have any of them, but heroes do. And so it's nice to get heroes. And those Art of War cards are just in general going to give you more control over the game, which you definitely start to feel if you have an entire fleet of monster cards. You're kind of like at the mercy of what you get, which does kind of make sense thematically if you think about it. Dice are what you battle with in this game, and it has a cool way of like when you roll dice, you can actually use your misses to boost your hits, or to boost your near hits, I should say, up to hits. So it's kind of cool where even if you roll something that's too low to matter, it's not just like you roll and look for hits. You roll, and then you can use your dice to boost other dice. It tends to normalize the system out and reminds me in a way of Mare Nostrum, even though Mare Nostrum's dice was more about just the dice being unique. Here, you can use dice to boost other dice, which means that you're going to have less of your issues where you just roll terrible and lose because of that. So I do enjoy this as a dice system, though it's not my favorite combat system I've seen. It does feel quite epic, though, when you take out bigger monsters and stuff, because if their defense level is higher than 5, which is the highest that these custom dice go, then you actually have to like do it in 2 waves. So you have to get these dice boosted to a 5, and then you have to roll them again. And it really does feel like, you're taking some big old swing. I personally felt like the game had enough really cool little elements, and I just have a love for Greek mythology that I did enjoy the game a lot. It is not the type of game that I would recommend for folks that are looking for a heavy experience. What it does is it does the Greek mythology. It does it in a very, I would say, well-designed, thoughtful way where everything seems to have a in-game use that feels like it's part of the mythology. If you are an expert, or not just an expert, I'm not an expert, but I just am a fan of mythology, and have really been inspired by it ever since I took a class in high school that was all about Greek and Roman mythology. If you're a fan of that, though, this game is just perfect for just pitting together 2 sides. You can and because you have control over these armies, you can be like, I'm going to be Zeus, and I'm going to get Medusa, and then I'm going to get Achilles, and then I'm going to get a few troops, to make sure that Medusa doesn't just get killed right away, or that Zeus doesn't get killed right away. And you have all these special abilities, all kinds of decisions, and the activations themselves offer you really interesting choices. My favorite single part of the game being the Art of War cards, which are just like one of the coolest resources. Oh, I forgot. You can also use Art of War cards to just, usually get one activation a turn, but you can spend one to get an extra activation once per turn. So, I mean, like, these Art of War cards can be used for so many cool things. Beautiful miniatures. I'm not the expert on that, though, so listen to the guy I played it with. His name is Jose, and he is a huge miniatures player. He showed me his collection of painted War Machine games, and he just is an amazing painter. And the entire time we were playing this game, Jose, I think he was absolutely in Elysium. He was loving this experience. He was like screaming and yipping every time he had a big dice roll, and he just pounded me into the ground with the leadership domination with all these Art of War cards, while I sat over there like, I can't activate anything I want to. So it was a really cool experience, and he just loved it. He was taking pictures of the box, taking pictures of the miniatures. He was texting his wife, "Why didn't you let me get this when it was on Kickstarter?" Mythic Battles Pantheon. If that sounds at all interesting to you, it really succeeds at what it was looking to deliver. It's by the same folks that made Conan, which I never played. I never had any interest in. But this one did interest me, and I'm happy that I tried it. I was definitely worried that it was going to come and it was just going to be like, a forgettable game with some nice pieces. That's not the case. There's a lot of love put into here. Some very solid mechanisms. So in Battle Lore, another Command & Color system, you play Battle Lore, TC?
Yes, I got to play the second edition from Fantasy Flight Games here fairly recently.
Okay, I was gonna say, yeah. So recently, when you're drawing in that game, none of the cards are actually tied to your specific units, right? It still is like you're activating based on location or based on the way that the card system works. Or
I think they were card specific because they were like there's different expansions you can get for it, and I think each expansion had different cards with it. I don't know. I only played it once. I really didn't pay attention.
There really are two different decks in that game. One of them is very generic, and the other one is like very faction specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have two different decks in that game.
I know there's tons of setup. You could like set all kinds of stuff with different scenarios. It was pretty neat.
Well, yeah, that was Mythic Battles Pantheon.
Hold on, Joe. I have something I got to say.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was waiting for you there, Trent. What were you going to say?
Life is a series of pulls back and forth, a tension of opposites, like a pull on a rubber band. Most of us live somewhere in the middle, a wrestling match. Which side wins? Love wins. Love always wins. Tuesdays with Maury.
Oh, my God.
What was that?
That was a quote.
Okay.
From Tuesdays with Maury.
Okay.
Yeah, the realization hit me, and that catches me off guard, and I just don't have anything for that. Love wins, and I lose. That's what happens.
Okay. I love you, Joe.
Love always wins, TC. Love always wins.
Okay.
Yep. Well, Trent, now that you've won, what would you like to review?
I'm going to talk about Riverboat, which I may have talked about in the past. I don't really know.
I'm looking forward to this.
But I want to talk about Riverboat because I played it with Joe a few days ago, and I've actually played it like 3 or 4 times in the last week, so I think it's a good time to talk about it. Riverboat is a hybrid of a bunch of games that will feel familiar when you're playing it, but it's like bits and pieces of those games, and they come together in an interesting way. I felt like there were bits and pieces of Great Western Trail in it, a bit of Kingdom Builder in it, and a bit of Puerto Rico in it, and some fresh new stuff as well. But it all comes together in a game that actually doesn't feel extremely heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, in this game, it plays over 4 rounds, 2 to 4 players. The way each round starts off is it starts off with a draft of 5 tiles. There's a first player. He chooses first of those 5 tiles, and it passes around the table, and the first player marker will pass. Thereafter, the 5 tiles that are drafted each represent one of the 5 phases in the game, and thereafter, whoever drafted the tile for that phase is going to go first in that phase. They're also going to get a bonus effect in that phase. This feels straight out of Puerto Rico. It's very much like Puerto Rico, except the draft all happens at once, and then you play out the rounds. So in front of you, you have this player board that consists of a whole bunch of hexagons. They're in groups of 5 different colors, but they all form one giant field. So there's like a chunk of them together that are green, and another chunk that's like gray, and another chunk that's white, and so on. So you get the idea. The first phase is simply someone flips over 8 cards in a row, and you take some of the workers you have. You start with 13 of them, but you're going to place them on the matching colors that are on those cards. So if someone flips over a green card, you have to put it on one of the green spaces on your board. Straightforward. It will come back around so that in future rounds, you may not even necessarily have 8 workers to place, which is probably not the best place to be in this game. You probably don't want to be in that situation, but you might be. Second round. In the second phase, you're picking tiles off of a tile display and putting them underneath the workers on your board. The tiles display are made up of hexes. They're made up of groupings of 1, 2, or 3 hexes. And each of those hexes on those tiles depicts a particular crop type. You can put them on your board wherever you like. It doesn't matter what color is underneath them, as long as you put the tile fully under workers. So you got to stick the tile under 100% under where there's workers on the board. If you choose a 3-sided tile, you get 2 points for taking it. If you choose a 2-hex tile, you get 1 point for taking it. Choose a 1-hex tile, you get bupkas. So why wouldn't you just take 3-sided tiles? Because you're going to want certain crop types in your field, because crop types have synergy, and that's where you get to with the third phase. In the third phase, you go around the table twice, and in the last round, you do it 3 times, and you choose one of the crop types, one of the 5, and you remove all your workers from the crop type, and you use those workers as basically as points to buy a riverboat tile. A riverboat tile is you put along the top of your board. It's going to end up forming a nice, pretty row of riverboats, and the riverboats are going to have an effect. Generally, the more workers you pull off, the better the effect is going to be in terms of setting you up for the win. The problem is, it requires you to have a lot of workers on the same exact crop type, which is kind of tricky. It means you have to be thinking ahead in terms of what tiles you're going to take during round 2, thinking ahead to future rounds all the way around, and so forth. So you do that twice, and you added some riverboat tiles. Fourth round, you draft variable player power cards. In essence, that's what they are. You pull them and you put them beside your board, and then as you draft them, you also get an immediate effect for having taken them. Fifth round, you do scoring. You have these green workers you've accumulated throughout. You start with 2 of them, and you have a few effects here and there that can get you a couple more. You're going to be placing them on your board in various places to score points. You're also going to be placing them on the cards you drafted to score points. Then you score a few more points for where your workers have been placed throughout the game, and you do it again. You go through 4 rounds or 4 full rounds of this, and the game's over. That's basically how Riverboat plays. But the thing is, it comes together in the nuances. Like I said, the first round feels like Kingdom Builder. The draft itself feels a lot like Puerto Rico in that you're drafting the tiles for abilities, but you get the better ability if you're the person that picks it. Everybody gets to do it, but the person that picks it gets a little bit better version. The part with the riverboat tiles, and then you also have a dock worker that moves along from tile to tile, feels a ton like the track and Great Western Trail to me. It's almost exactly what it feels like. You're moving along the trail and things get better as you go along, and you're going to get more points. Or not the trail, but the track around the edge of the board in Great Western Trail feels a lot like that to me. But with all these elements that seem familiar, they all kind of come together in a weird way. This is a game where, like, I talked about building up, but you don't want to build up too much. It's one of those games where you want to build up some, but if you spend too much time building up, you're going to get destroyed. If you spend too little time building up and just do like, always take a 3-sided tile every single time and don't plan ahead at all, you're also going to get crushed. It's a balancing act. And it's in that balancing act and balancing all the various elements of the game for scoring and stuff that makes the game really interesting. It's not like this is a point salad game. It's really not that. It's just you kind of have to find a happy medium between planning ahead and getting points out now. You want to get your workers off the board so you can put them back on next round. But at the same time, you don't want to get really... You want to get good regions when you're pulling them off. You want to be pulling off 4, 5, 6 at a time so you can get really good riverboat tiles. It's all about balancing, and that's what makes this game fun for me. Every time it feels like a new balancing. And it just has lots of little elements, like the fact that you have these coins that you can always use for special abilities throughout the game. Each round has a different special ability you can get for spending a coin. So you got to decide, is this worth it? especially since considering a coin is worth a point at the end of the game. And there's also some effects that will give you even more points for just sitting on coins. It just adds together a lot of nice elements that into a surprisingly short game, it really has a lot of interesting things going on that has made me want to replay it and replay it and replay it. And in fact, I'm going to be hitting upon this game a little bit later in this because this is my best of 2017 episode. And
Oh boy.
hint. That's Riverboat. I quite like this.
Spoiler alert. All right. Well, with having played this one with Trent, I just got one game under my belt, so I can't really say anything 100% for certain. But I would say it used the the way that Trent described that phase. What is it? Phase 2, where you're actually placing your workers based on the cards that are flipped from this deck, right?
That's phase 1. That's the first phase.
Phase 1. So here, it reminded me so much of like bingo because everybody has a unique player board that has these different suits in different places, and you're trying to sort of get groups because if you can get a group of 3, you can put this tile there that's going to get you 2 points. Plus, it just like always is going to give you 3 vegetables, and the more of the same vegetable you get is good, but that's kind of another competing element of the game. And not only that, but you have to draft those. You have to draft the rules for all the different rounds. I mean, there's a lot of tight elements in this game that I thought were very interesting. It takes a lot of elements from other games, adds some things that are totally unique that I've never seen anything like before, and then it wraps it up into a theme that I want to like a lot, but I would have to say that the riverboat element of it is the part that I want the most out of, and there really isn't much riverboating to it. It mainly feels like, to me, when I think about what's interesting in this game, it is that farming element where you're kind of putting these guys out on a board to then draft these tiles that are riverboats, but the riverboat element of them is fairly marginal. I would like to warn anybody, though, who comes at this from like a Euro angle, and that is that there's a couple of pretty, I would say, good, almost overpowered little like competitions that you're doing, where the amount of points you score is going to be, especially for one of them, kind of like Terra Mystica, a closed economy of points where the first player is going to score 20, the second player is going to score 10, and then 5, and then nothing. So it's like one of those where, if I send 9 guys to the big house, the big New Orleans house, whatever they call that, and you send 8, I'm going to get 10 more points than you, even though I only sent 1 more. And you'll definitely be like, the game's only 4 rounds long, which feels, like a decent, like a good length. I would say about the right length. I think more rounds would have been a bad idea, but you'll definitely start doing the math and being like, well, based on everything I can see that he has access to, which there's no hidden information in the game, right, Trent? Nothing's hidden here. Everything is out on the table. Based on what I can see, I know that he's going to be able to get 1 more dude in New Orleans. So if I even waste my time going there, it's just going to force him to spend more, and it's just going to mean we both lose. So, I mean, there's a couple of different elements in this game that I almost want to see variants for scoring, just because of how hugely impactful those two can be. The break points are a huge deal. But I really did enjoy this. My one play had me just, thinking I've never seen an element that's even remotely like bingo that worked for me, without just making me think, I just play this one with my family. In a weird way, this game reminds me of Walnut Grove, simply because the farming element is what's strongest to me mechanically, and it is a game designed by graphically designed by Clemens Franz. And it just looks like Walnut Grove. And it's kind of a short, tight game about, where farming is one of the central aspects. The riverboat aspect to me is a marginal addition. The thing I would like to see, though, for this game, same as with Walnut Grove, is I just want to see, like, more cards, more, like, I guess I want alternate riverboat tiles. I want to see something like, like in Great Western Trail, where it reminds me, the riverboat tiles remind me of the buildings. Like, Trent, the buildings that you build in Great Western Trail?
That's what I was referring to, yeah.
I would like to see something where, like, there's an alternate set of riverboat tiles where you choose to play with this one, or you randomly decide this one or this one, where you, like, flipped it to the back. But when I was looking at the game, when I was looking at what all those tiles do, they all did seem really kind of tied to basic elements of the core gameplay, and I don't really think there's much more to explore there without maybe adding some heft. So it maybe is one of those games that's going to be fun for 5 to 10 plays and then kind of cool after that. But very, very cool. Very interested after one. Really want to try it again.
Okay.
So TC, this is a game that's about a riverboat, and you're like doing all these Euro things, Puerto Rico, all this name dropping happen, and bingo. You ever heard that? This is
I
like
heard bingo. I heard bingo. Riverboat's also designed by Kiesling, isn't it?
Yep.
I remember right. Yeah. I know of the game. Okay. I know it exists. I have looked into it. I have not had a chance to play it yet.
Yep. Well, that gets us through our through TC, through me, and through Trent's basic review section of this podcast.
Hey Outlaws, do you like buying games and playing games? Well, I'm sure you do. Luckily, you can save 10% on your favorite games that the good, the bored, and the ugly play on GameSurplus.com. That means you can play your favorite games and get 10% off of them when you become obsessed with them and want to buy it for yourself so you can continue playing until you lose your mind playing it.
What do you say we play a little Bangkok Rules?
During checkout of your GameSurplus.com order, enter code GoodBoardUglyPicks. That's GoodBoardUglyPicks, no spaces, not case sensitive. Enter GoodBoardUglyPicks for 10% off your podcast picks from the good, the bored, and the ugly. Now, it's going to be to the two of you guys up to the two of you to tell us about what has been best that you've seen so far in 2017. Now, little bit of a caveat here. Anything that's released from December 14th, 2017 until December 31st, first of all, why right now? Why?
I know there's so many games that's come out that I don't know. I mean, there's Battle for Rokugan, there's Sid Meier's Civilization: A New Dawn, there's Fallout, there's the expansion for Star Trek Ascendancy, the board expansion. Like, there's so many. Charterstone. I mean, there's so many.
Charterstone just came out, yeah, and I didn't even hear anything about Charterstone. Charterstone, I feel like, is flying so under the radar, and this is, like the community just goes, like Trent said, and I agree, goes ape, it just goes crazy for a legacy style game. Like this one seems to be just sliding under the rug. What's going on?
A Gaia project. I mean, there are a ton of games that have come out that I don't even know where they're going to settle on this end of the year. So my list is a caveat because there's like 8 games that I need to play that's come out in December. And that's just crazy that they all come out at this time. I guess it's like video games, right? They all push them out before Christmas so they can sell a ton of them. Maybe.
Yes, I absolutely agree. So TC, since you jumped up here first, why don't you take us on the journey through your top games of 2017?
Do we have a number we're going to discuess?
No, dude, no arbitrary numbers. No, absolutely not. If you have them to say them. You guys, I guess, it'll be a little bit, you guys decide when it's time to take turns and whatnot. If you want to, I don't know how long you're planning on taking, but maybe alternate, maybe not. Up to you.
Well, I have about 5 or 6. How about you, Trent?
I have a top 10.
Okay, I'll try to keep up with you. So my first game I wanted to talk about is I always have to throw in a game from last year that lingers. And the game from last year that we're playing now is the game that I wish I lived near you guys. Because this would be the game I'd break out just to watch you guys lose your marbles over it. And that's Seafall. I've been having such an insane amount of fun with this game, and I don't know if I'm rubbernecking it. I don't know if it's a beautiful mess. I don't know what it is, but it's a one game that makes me wish, oh, man, I wish I lived next to Joe, because I would make you play this thing just to watch you play it. It'd be like the most beautiful thing on the face of the earth. And for a game that got railroaded so hard, I could see why it did, but, oh, Joe, I really wish I lived close to you just to play this with you. I mean, I would really like to see you play this.
All I gotta say is this. I don't think people really realize that they didn't want getting punched in the face repeatedly in their legacy 2-hour games. It's a 2-hour-long legacy game where you repeatedly punch everybody in the face.
And you roll dice, and we had a game. Carissa was like 20 points behind, and we botched the game so hard, and she just went out randomly exploring that she tightened the whole game up within like 6 points, and that's in one game. It was crazy. Like, oh, I would just to see that happen to you, Joe. I would pay a large amount of money to see this. So.
TC, I just don't know what to say to you, man. I am glad. I think I need a restraining order.
We even played it. One of the guys I played with, his name's Steven, he even said flat out, this would be the game this is the type of game I hate playing. But playing it with you guys has made it very worthwhile. So,
that's sweet.
Yeah, so I think if you go with the right group of people and expecting it to be what it is, I think you have a large amount of fun with it. But I can definitely see why people didn't care for it. But I just had to throw that in there. We're still going through it. We're halfway through it, but for a game that came out last year that was totally just called C-Fail and was supposed to be this complete, utter pile of garbage, it's been a lot of fun. So there we go. There's my throwback to last year.
It's fun. It's not every other Legacy game that's out there is like really friendly. It's either a co-op or it's very lightly confrontational.
Yeah, or balanced.
Yeah, and this was just like punch people in the face.
Yeah, you can just like go raid people.
And they're crazy, and it's like, yeah.
It's like, oh, Joe, looks like you have a lot of money. I'm going to hit your port and just roll some dice and see if I steal your money. Oh, I do. Bye. What? Yeah, that's just happened.
You like blatantly pirate raid other players. Just blatantly. Like, I want your stuff. I'm going to come and take it if I get a decent die roll.
Yeah, it's...
yeah, that's me. Like, just
you would launch this game into the stratosphere, Joe. It would go away.
Yeah, BC fail.
Let's see, but it would be awesome to see you do it. Okay, cool. That's mine.
Why don't we have Trent do 2? Since that way, if we do it this way, if I've done the math right, you guys should end on the same interval.
All right. My number 10 was Riverboat, which I just talked about a bunch. So I'm going to skip right over that. And my number 9 is another game where I just talked about a bunch, and that is Gloomhaven.
All right. Wow.
Literally 10 and 9 were Riverboat and Gloomhaven. So I'm going to kick it right back to TC.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, TC. Here you go.
Well, I do have Gloomhaven on my list, but that's just after one play. But the way you guys talk about it sounds like I'm in for a great deal of fun. Like I said, for the price, it was crazy for the amount of content you get. A diceless role-playing system was amazing. The miniatures are cool. The characters are unique. From what I've seen looking through the adventure book, they look really, everything. And it's even got I'd say it's a very light legacy, where the actual board of the game, you don't even use, it's just the map. You sticker.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a legacy game, TC, because you sticker cards.
You just sticker the cards? I know we sticker the board.
Well, you can sticker the cards there's an augmentation system by which you would permanently sticker cards. You also do choose upgrades on a sheet of paper, which you can easily copy. It's a legacy game where there's been pains taken to make sure that players that don't want to play legacy don't have to destroy components, but it has all of the things like that get you into the system. Yeah, it does have. It has opening boxes, so you're going to be like, there's stickers that you're going to be removing, and so you can get into a box. And yeah, there's all kinds of pieces. We were just sitting there, I wonder what type of a hero is going to be in this box, and we were excited, and and so many of them. What's interesting about the game is that they vastly change the game, like Trent said, and you end up sometimes with an impossible party composition. Did that ever happen to you guys, Trent?
Yes. Or not quite impossible, but awful.
Yes. It's just like we're all like these weird, funky support heroes, and none of us actually deals any damage or can move
or heals.
So we just sit here at the start space, buff each other, and then slowly die.
I think the thing that really impresses the most about Gloomhaven is how it hides its randomness. It's there. You got initiative, which all D&D games have. It's got, you flip a card to see if you get any bonuses, but there's little things to make it feel like it's under your control. Like you flip over your deck, you're like, okay, I have my +1s out already. I know the rest in here are minus ones, but maybe I'll get the ×2 and reshuffle this whole thing. And, you can play high in initiative, but, you don't know if the enemies are going to go faster than you because those dang archers, they can shoot off really quick. So I like the way it balances everything. And it's refreshing.
Your deck is unique, too. I mean, you're actively changing. As you level up that hero, you're actively changing what's in your quote-unquote D20, Instead of a D20, you have that deck that you build up. Very, very cool. And I'm glad that you liked it, too. So it was your number 5 then?
Oh, it's
TC?
there somewhere. It's at my games I enjoyed this year.
It was one of your 5 or 6. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned that because Trent had talked about it. That makes sense. Yeah, cool.
So it's back to me for my number 8.
Back to you. Number 8 and 7.
What you're going to realize from this list is that I have a soft spot in my heart for unique experiences that are kind of different and out there. And that's what you're going to get out of these next two. Number 8 is a game called Illimat. Illimat is a trick-taking game that came out this year. It was originally a Kickstarter, but it had been floating around as like a print and play for a while before then. Illimat is a game you're going to feel really familiar with. It's going to make complete intuitive sense at first. If you play games like Spades or Euchre or Pitch or something like that, or Bridge or anything like that, it's like a trick-taking game. But the best way I can describe Illimat is imagine that there are actually 4 different places on the board where you can go to start a trick and take a trick, in effect.
Yeah.
And when you're playing cards in your hand, you can choose which of those 4 you're going to play a card into. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to complete sets of the cards that are out there. So, like, say I play a 5 out there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cards that are out there that add up to the sets of them that add up to 5 and basically just claim all of them. In essence, that's what you're doing. And what's even more weird is each of the 4 areas where you can play a trick has a different rule involved with it that changes the game a little bit. So the game functions slightly differently in each of those areas. Everybody's playing for themselves. You're basically essentially trying to score 17 points. You score points by clearing all the cards out of the trick. So what you do is, when you say I play a 5 out there, that means I can essentially effectively remove the 5. And then I can remove a 3 and a 2 out of that trick as well. And then if it manages to, if all the tricks start with some cards in it, and if you manage to empty out a trick, you essentially get a point. And then the trick refills. But then when it refills with a second optional rule that you don't know. All the additional rules for each trick are known at the beginning. But on the refill, when you refill it again, it adds a second rule for the rest of just that hand. And those are really funky. They do all kinds of just weird crap. Okay? But the thing is, those things...
It's a bunch of weird crap, really.
No, but the second effects are usually you have to work to make them trigger, but they have massive effects in the game. So you can see them coming. You know they're going to these effects are probably going to happen at some point. So you can plan ahead for them a little bit. One of them, for example, basically is you shift the entire board 1 turn to the left. You put your hand down, the points you've earned so far this round, and everything goes to the player to your left. You know this has got the possibility of triggering, and you know which player can probably work towards it and get it if you've been paying attention. So you can plan for that, or you can be like, no one's really going to be able to get this, and it's not really going to happen. I don't have to worry about it. Your choice. You know it's there. And if you've been paying attention, you can plan around it or not. It just has a lot of interesting little things going on. But in the end, it's not any harder to teach. It's a little harder to teach than like Euchre. But I've thoroughly enjoyed playing this game. It's really well done. The game fits in a small box that has everything you need in it. But essentially, the rules are explained by flipping the box upside down, sitting it in the middle of the table. And it kind of explains what the rules are for the 4 different tricks on the back of the box. Kind of splits the table into 4 quadrants. It's just really interesting how it works. It feels very familiar and very different at the same time. And it's that familiar plus different that really throws you off when you're playing it. It's called Illimat. It's spelled Illimat. If you like trick-taking games and want a little bit more with it, that's a good one to look at. Highly recommended. My number 7 is one that I know you two are completely have no idea what I'm talking about with Illimat. So I'll go on to number 7.
Sounds cool.
Okay, number 7 is one that I know Joe has played because I played it with him. That's Sidereal Confluence. Sidereal Confluence is a game for 4 to 9 players. It's basically a trading game. It's almost all it is. It's a real-time trading game. That's 90% of what you're doing is trading real resources in real time. What's interesting about it is all of the players in the game have very, very, very different variable player powers. And I've played this, I think, 3 times now, I think, total. And it's been a very different experience each time I played it. Because it changes so much based on the outgoingness of the group and the willingness to dicker and barter, what the races in the game are, how different people are playing those individual races. How will you even understand your race? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't played a game where I sat down, read over my race, and felt like I knew what I was doing in any of those games. Like, I don't even know how this is supposed to come together for anything. All 3 times it's been with different races. It's just a fun experience every time, and it's an experience that feels very different every time. It's an experience that it's one of those games that you just kind of want to show people for something really different, and you don't think it can really come together as well as it does. I thoroughly enjoy Sidereal Confluence. The only problem is, I think it really shines at about 6 or 7 players, and it's tricky to get that many players at the table. Plus, when you're playing with that many players, you need a big table.
Yeah, that's
There's
true. And
a lot
this
of
game
stuff.
does turn into a big space hog too. You kind of like build out a tableau, and you'd have to like not only explain the basics of the game, which is pretty simple, but everybody has like, you know, this sort of like cardstock sheet that shows how your race is totally different from everything else. Honestly, Trent, when you're talking about this game, I really want to see more games of it. You know, I really want to play it more because it seemed to me like there was a lot of interesting things here. And I especially think TC would enjoy this game.
Oh, I really want to play this one. Just the name of the alien races alone make me want to play this thing.
Yeah, they get way into the goofy space opera, sci-fi, weird alien race name thing. Big time with this one. All kinds of weird names.
Yeah, just watching I just saw the character, the races. And I was like, just to pronounce those names would be great. It's just like, yeah, that's gonna be cool.
All right, so I'd say back to TC.
Okay, let's go way back to the beginning of the year. I got Fields of Despair, France, 1914 to 1918 from GMT Games. This is a World War I block game for 2 players with the same map design, the same guy who designed the map who did Liberty or Death, so it's a gorgeous map. The thing that made me and Carissa really like this one is, first of all, most block games, you can only crank up your forces to 4. This one, you can like put like up to like 32 guys on a block. It's crazy. And you can upgrade technologies. Each person has a hidden sheet, a hidden board. You like upgrading your stuff. You can upgrade things. You can send biplanes out to spy on the other side, because the whole trick of this game is to find a weakness in the front and exploit it and march through. As the Germans, you're dealing with the Eastern Front in this really cool abstract way where you're drawing cubes out of the bag and you're having to send troops to the Eastern Front to deal with the Russians. It abstracts the war in the Pacific with the cube draw. It is a really cool game. It's got a really nice solo mode. I haven't tried the solo mode because I'm too busy getting crushed by Carissa in this thing. But for a block game, it's really, really good. And if you have any interest in World War I, any interest in block games, I highly recommend checking this one out. It is out of print. It's a little hard to find because it came out like in February, I believe. But wow, this is an all-day game. Great block game. The biggest complaint with it is a bucket of dice games. And it's such a huge bucket of dice games because each unit rolls a die and you have like 32 units that can just rush out and attack. You actually roll like 4 dice and you consult a chart and it gives you statistically how many hits you got when you rolled like 40 dice. You gotta like roll these 6 and consult this chart and go here and here. Okay, that's how many hits you have. But other than that, great historical game, great immersive game. If you like block games, war games, check this out. Fields of Despair.
I like this one too. That's all I'm going to say. It's quite good.
No, you played it, Trent?
I got to play part of a game sitting in for someone down at BGGCon. I didn't really talk about it during the thing, but someone basically like sat me down and said I needed to try this and stuck me into their game for a while, and I kept wanting to play it, and then I had to go. But it was a guy I knew from a heavy con. He just like sat me down and said, "Try this." So it seems really cool. I want to play it more. Cool.
I'm glad someone else got to try it. People need to play it. I think it's very good. No, that's mine. Part of my GMT Love Fest that's coming up.
So I'm doing my number 5 and my number 4, or let's see, my number 6 and number 5. That's 6 and 5. That's right. This is the section Andy would love, because I think Andy would be like woohoo for both of these. Just forewarning you. My number 6 is 4X. 4X is a game by Hollandspiel. It's basically foreign currency trading is what it is. Basically, the board consists of what looks like kind of like a spreadsheet. And what it does is it lists the exchange rate between 7 different currencies in every possible pairing. So you have the euro, and so you can check what the euro is compared to the dollar, and the euro is compared to the pound, and so on and so forth through 7 different currencies. Every single possible pairing of all of those currencies has a little token on there that indicates its exchange rate. So what you're going to find out very quickly is, as the game evolves, is that there's going to be some inefficiencies in that exchange rate. Your entire game is about finding those inefficiencies and figuring out how to exploit them. But the game only really gives you some, I want to say, flimsy tools with which to do that. You don't have many ways to really dig into that and actually exploit it. You have a clumsy way of getting more currency of a particular type. You have a clumsy way of kind of betting on the future of certain currencies. And that's about it. And the turn is taking turns doing those simple little steps and also talking other people into trades. And that's pretty much the whole game. It's all about what can the players come up with out of this mix. And what I found is like all kinds of stuff can happen out of this mix. You can end up with 2 players agreeing to cartel a particular currency for the win. You can have just complete chaos and anarchy, and you don't even know what's going to hardly happen. You can have some guy just rapidly pushing into the game and causing you to wind up with some massively overpriced euros. It's happened to me. Just all kinds of different stuff can happen. It's all about shenanigans, is what it is. The game looks like a spreadsheet, but there's a lot of things going on in there when you start playing around with it. And I really appreciate it for on its surface simplicity, but there's a lot of things going on inside of it. And I look forward to playing it again and again. It's 4X. That was my number 6.
Very interested in 4X. TC, you got to try this one, man. It's got a lot of the elements.
On my list. It's high on my list.
This
also
is
high on my list is watching YouTube play online.
Dude, this is the Hollandspiel home run to me. You know that, like Andy kind of jokingly said when we said we were going to do 2017 in review and do a top games. He said just say all the Hollandspiel games, and 4X is the best. And I would say this is the Hollandspiel home run. This is the one that is the cleanest, best playing game that company of any of the games I've played from that company. And I think that it really is the type of game that has that wider appeal, especially among economic gamers. I really do like this one as well, Trent. I was totally wrong to say anything negative about it in my first play. I was just new. I think I kind of prefaced that a lot of my stuff, I wanted to play it again and see, and that's definitely changed my mind.
Okay.
Is it, what are you at now? Was that 6?
That was 6. I'm now going to do 5.
You got to go to 5. Yep.
Yeah. My number 5 is 18 Ireland, which is a new 18xx game released this year, designed by Ian Scrivens. It's definitely one of those ones that's all about, it really feels like it's about running good companies game, where you want to keep your company healthy, not get it into too much of debt, and make sure you just turn it into something that's going to make a lot of money, which means basically you're focused on laying tiles on the board and being fairly conservative how you run your company, because if you don't, this game will make you pay hard for it. You need to be kind of careful with it. I would say it's, as games go, where you're mostly focusing on the board and running a good company, it's on the meaner end of those. However, those types of games I find are on the nicer end of 18xx games. I think the really mean ones are the stock-focused ones. The ones where you run a good company are usually fairly friendly, but this is on the meaner end of that. I just like the way the board's laid out. Every 18x game has little tweaks. I just found this one enjoyable, and it was probably, I mean, I played a few that came out that are coming out this year, or have come out this year, a couple. I like this one better than the other one that immediately comes to mind, which is 18CZ. And this is one that I definitely want to play again, and I probably own a copy of. So there you go, 18 Ireland.
Cool. Yeah, that's good for the 18xx players. I mean, you said that you hadn't played 18CZ yet, right?
I have played 18CZ.
Oh.
As my initial take is, I played it once, and my initial take is I prefer 18 Ireland. If I had to play one or the other right now, I would immediately play 18 Ireland. However, I will say this. I think 18 Ireland works better with a higher player count of around 5, whereas if I had like 3 or something, I'd probably rather play 18CZ.
Okay. 4 would be a crapshoot.
I'd say it'd be a crapshoot, but I'd probably choose 18 Ireland. I think right now I'm more interested in playing it. It's just how I feel at the moment. So there you go. I played a lot of 18XX. I felt like one really should be on this list, especially since a few good ones came out this year. And that is definitely my favorite one of the year is 18 Ireland.
Cool. And that was like your 4 or no 5.
That was my number 5 of the year, I think.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you got these numbers because it helps us keep pace so we know when to switch off, because now, TC, it's your turn.
All right, this is going to be a twofer, and this one's a direct fault of you, Joe. You pointed out that I Euro challenged, and one of I've played it before, Castles of Burgundy. And I was like, I've never really explored a lot of Feld games, right? I've played Castles of Burgundy, I really liked it, and I've heard that Feld's kind of hit or miss for a lot of things. And this year, there were 2 reprints that came out that I was very excited to play because I heard that these 2 were the most vicious, mean Feld games that he ever did. And they both came out this year as reprints because they were both published 10 years ago. And that's Notre Dame and In the Year of the Dragon.
Booyah.
Now, the reason I like these is that they're mean, but it's like shooting yourself in the foot if you do bad with them because you're not paying attention to what you need to do. And the thing I really enjoy about both of them is that you can play these games completely safe and get a mediocre score. But the trick of the game, both of them, essentially, without going into details how to play them, is when do you turn the corner and take the hit and the negative points to score a lot of in-game victory points. That's the trick of these games.
Absolutely.
Just caution to the wind. Be like, you know what? I'm going to, and like You're the Dragon, these last 2 bits are going to hit me. I don't care because I'm going to maximize my points. Or in Notre Dame, you're like, you know what? I'm going to blow the rat track out the roof, but I'm going to just cash in a ton of points and just kill the game. And it took a few games for me to realize that. But once you do it, and once other people figure it out, they're really fun games. They're quick games. They play like in 45 minutes. They're replayable. And for games that are 10 years old, I was surprised the amount of replayability these games still had. I really like both of them. I like both of them. I own both of them, and I got them. They were blowing them out because they reprinted them. As like I got them both really cheap. I'm like, guys, these are really good games. These are really good. So if you haven't tried them and you want a game where you can kill yourself really quickly, I recommend In the Year of the Dragon and Notre Dame.
Do you group them together? Because I would say In the Year of the Dragon is like, I feel like the game is just so horribly mean that if you can somehow keep all of your stuff throughout that game, like something has gone horribly wrong. Because you are just, you're losing things left and right. It is the game is really, it's the game versus you, and the other players are just kind of there. But there's definitely some interaction and stuff. It's a cool system, and I've really enjoyed games of In the Year of the Dragon. The Notre Dame I find is a lot like, yes, the rat track is like, the sort of Feldian punishment, because that has to be that in every one of his games. But I find that the rat track seems to be something that I'm kind of disappointed, but the person who wins always seems to just have abandoned the rat track at some point. And I think that you're right saying that. It's just, I'm a little bit less impressed by Notre Dame because of how that rat track is usually just thrown to the wind at different points by people. But I'm so glad, TC, that you tried these 2 games again because they're just such interesting. Trent, are you okay? I think Trent has caught the plague.
I think he whipped the rat track.
You just got the rats, yeah.
The only reason I group them together is they both came out, and when I was looking at them initially, it was like, Notre Dame's a mean game, but In the Year of the Dragon's even meaner, right?
Oh, yes,
they're kind of lumped together that way. And they both had reprints this year, and
at the same time.
So
yeah, they're both out of print, and they both got reprinted at the same time. I definitely think they're the type of games that I'm happy to see in print, and I feel like they are a good. They're going to be good evergreen style games. I can recommend In the Year of the Dragon fairly well. To most players that are going to like that sort of like mean. The thing I love about In the Year of the Dragon is that you can see all of the events at the start of the game. I really like that it's got that that solid, you can plan for things. The round to round, shuffling of the different actions is quite a bit of randomness and a little bit difficult for me to take, especially when you get hit with the one thing that you want happens to be paired up with the one thing the only guy before you in turn order wants, or when you go all out and get the turn order track for yourself, and then the one thing that you want is all by itself, and you don't get to actually block anybody.
Yeah, there's you have the victory track and that turn order track, and there's only so many people you can recruit, and your buildings can only hold so many people, and at some point, the whole thing is going to collapse. It's like, hang on. And the thing I like about it is you're all equally screwed. It's just how bad you could screw someone else over who gets screwed worse than what you're going to get screwed.
Yeah, a very, very cool game. In the Year of the Dragon, unfortunately, no dragons, but very, very cool. So, TC, your same complaint as the Time Stories one, right? The Time for Dragons or whatever. Prophecy of Dragons.
Yeah,
there's no dragons here either.
Yeah, at least there's a dragon on the cover of the box, and there's little
dragon,
dragon on the board somewhere.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a couple of interesting ones, TC. I'm glad to hear that you've revisited.
Trent, we played the heck out of them too. They sucked up a few months of play. We really played them that much. Yeah,
I have kept 4 Felds, and those are 2 of them.
Excellent.
Well, there you go. And I'm imagining. Let me guess the other ones. Castles of Burgundy.
Yep, and the other one you'll probably have trouble with.
No, I won't, because I know, Trent, you got Trajan.
Nope.
What? Did you get rid of Trajan?
Yep.
Wow. Holy crap. Which is the one that Trent really likes?
I got you thrown there.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
That Trent likes.
Trent. Well, I mean, he likes them all, but he had to get rid of them.
No, I can guarantee you, Merlin will never be in my collection.
No, not Merlin. Oh my goodness, not at all.
Aquasphere.
Not Aquasphere. I don't think it's Aquasphere. It is. I don't think it's that Oracle Delphi one either.
Amerigo.
What?
No.
Amerigo?
No.
Amerigo. I'm just.
That was a good guess. That might have been. That would probably been the next one I would have said. I don't know, Trent.
Bora Bora.
Oh crap! I knew that. Darn it!
I like Bora Bora quite a bit. Anyway, I'll go on with my. Huh?
I say I will not be getting rid of my In Year of the Dragon Notre Dame. They're permanently on my game shelf. I like them that much.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Number 4 is a game that I think my our former co-host would deeply enjoy and appreciate, and that is Too Many Bones.
Jonathan,
Yeah, Jonathan would have appreciated this game quite a bit. Too Many Bones is basically it's a dungeon crawl type game, I guess you could say, but it does things in a very interesting way. It's a campaign based dungeon crawler is what it is in its essence, but it has a really interesting way in which you develop your characters. Basically, you develop your characters over scenario by earning XP and then spending it to improve the dice set you've got for your characters. So you start off with a really awful set of dice, and then over time you're gradually upgrading them over a period of time. This die becomes something better. So what happens is these dice are all very different from each other, and you kind of have this upgrade track mat thing that you've got. And over time, you're adding more dice to this mat, and on your turn, what you're essentially doing is choosing the ones that are available for you on your mat. And those are essentially the ones you're going to be rolling because they represent different abilities. So you might have like a level 1 spell, and then you get a level 2 version of it, then you get a level 3 version of it. So when it comes time on your turn comes around, you decide, now is on, I'm going to cast my level 3 spell, you use the much better version of the die. That's how you've invested the XP in yourself to improve yourself. And then you go on this campaign, essentially, with these characters. And I gotta say, this plays pretty quickly overall. You go on this campaign with your characters, and then when you actually go into the sessions, you end up battling a number of enemies. But the enemies are you're on this 4x4 grid board, and all the players and enemies are depicted by chips on this board. And then they move around to different locations on this little mini 4x4 board. and you're adjacent to each other, and you can use certain abilities, and you have certain ranged abilities that you can use, and it flows along magnificently. It doesn't have all the like location. Do I have line of sight here? Non-issue in this. They just got rid of all that kind of nonsense. It's and there's a fair amount of dice chunking in it. Once you've upgraded your character a little bit, there really are no bad sides anymore. It's more like a tactical choice of which one you're going to use because you want these kinds of effects. Like, I want to heal. I'm going to be healing between 3 and 5. It's not like I'm going to fail. It's how much am I going to heal? And should I instead then use 2 heal dice to make darn sure I get the 6 heal total I need? Or do I just use 1 and then use something else instead when I roll? That's the kind of decisions you're making. It's not about whether you fail randomly. It's like, how important is it for me really to heal right now versus doing other things? It's kind of the question you're always asking yourself. It kind of takes away the critical failure aspect that a lot of people really hate in games. There is a little of that, especially when your character's weak, but the enemies are weak too, and it usually doesn't matter. And the battles start mattering. Failure no longer really matters. You're just trying to strategically think out how you want to position stuff and what kind of stuff you want to do. And the way the characters upgrade is beautiful, and it plays so quickly. There isn't a lot of like sitting around going da-da-da-da. The most time you sit around going like, what am I doing, and wasting time is the character upgrades. I quite enjoy it. I played through a few campaigns of it. I'm getting the Undertow stuff, which is like a standalone expansion thing for it.
Yeah.
The characters are very distinct because they all have unique dice and unique upgrade paths and everything like that. They feel very different from each other. It's just well executed. I included Gloomhaven on this list, but I will say that Too Many Bones is my favorite campaign game of 2017.
I'm writing that down. Okay, Too Many Bones.
Yeah, TC, this is right up your alley.
Yes, I think TC would probably most likely like it. I would rather right now play it over Gloomhaven. So
Wow.
take that for what you will.
Okay, it means I'm going to have to try it. That's what it means.
Okay, what was my number 3? Oh yeah, my number 3 is, this is another one Joe will probably start being like, yay over, is Gaia Project. It's Terra Mystica in space. It's, in my opinion, strictly better Terra Mystica. It needed to be on this list. It's number 3. We talked about it a ton last week, I think. And I don't need to rehash it other than to say it's an improved Terra Mystica, and it's one I'm thrilled to play again.
Actually agree with you on 100%, and definitely don't need to go into it super deep, but I don't get the criticisms. I'm hearing a few criticisms from different places that are like, I'm not, people aren't as taken with this as they felt like they were taken by Terra Mystica. Yeah, because it's more refining a system and making it somehow work in a totally new environment with all of the different elements of the game. I would want to say like all the different races and everything are different, but that core gameplay, this is the type of game that brought a lot of people into heavy games in the first place. And I think that Gaia Project could do that, but at the same time pleases me as a lover of Terra Mystica. It somehow still caters to me, and that's what's amazing to me about it. It's not going to be the same as when you played Terra Mystica for the first time, maybe, if you've already played Terra Mystica many times, but it does not in any way diminish its impact.
I got to hold it. I will play it soon. And the thing that shocked me was they went the MSRP looks like it's like $100 for this thing. Yeah, so I was like, ooh.
It is. It's $100, and you gotta spend like 70 for it at least. It's a bunch, man. It is a bunch.
Especially when 100 got me my friend at Gloomhaven. I was like, ooh, that seems a little bit.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, yeah. If you start comparing things to Gloomhaven, then
everything's going to be expensive. I know. That's not fair.
There's so much value for what you pay. Yeah, I agree with that. Well, what is our interval at here? That was your number 3, right,
so
Trent? So it's now TC.
Okay. My next one is Pericles, the Peloponnesian War by Mark Herman. This is his follow-up to Churchill, and it actually fixes a few things, or actually adds a little bit to that Churchill lacked. And my biggest complaint about Churchill was that right side of the board, whenever you execute, is just basically this light interactive map where you move things around and you got victory points and score. Pericles completely fixes that. That is now a battle on that right side of the map. And what makes Pericles absolutely amazing, first of all, you need 4 players for it, is that at one point in the game, The person you're playing with, you're fighting with them to get agenda done in the Senate, right? You're like duking it out. But during the second phase, you have to work with that person to go after the other pair. So like you're fighting it out as Sparta. Then like, okay, we got to work together now. Now that we argued in the Senate to beat the other opponent. So you're fighting each other, then you're working with each other, then you're fighting with each other. It is an incredible experience. It is so much fun. The biggest hang up to this is just learning to play it. The learn to play, it took us a while to learn to play this thing. But once you get in the groove of it, if you like Churchill and you wanted more, and you like the setting, because this is when Socrates was running around and you had like all these crazy battles going on. It is such an immersive, amazing experience. And I am really surprised that it hasn't ranked higher in any other end of the game years I've heard. It is probably the most unique game I've played this year, and that is Pericles.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that, Trent?
I played it once. I probably would. There's a lot of games that might have wound up on this list if they got more plays for me, and this is definitely in that group.
Yeah.
I love Churchill.
Oh, yeah. Churchill's really good.
I feel like this is a good follow-up. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind how I really feel about it, but it's really, I can say at the very least, it's really, really good and an interesting and least worthwhile follow-up to Churchill.
Have you
it's in
played
that
it?
group of games that could have been on my top 10 list if I'd have played them more.
Have you played it solo?
No.
Okay, just wondering.
No, I haven't played it solo either. I got three other suckers to play it with me. We played it like 4 or 5 times. It's like during our fifth play, we were just like, we're almost there. I think we're finally. It's like playing a coin game, right? You got to play like, okay, I think we're almost there. I think we're understanding what's going on. Can you do something? And it's like, yeah, that was a bad thing. We need to play it some more. I messed that all up.
Nice.
So yeah, Pericles.
How many more you got left, TC?
I have 2 more.
Okay, let's alternate now.
Okay.
And I've got to say, I'm pretty sure that we both have one remaining that overlaps.
Oh, I'm pretty darn sure we got one as well.
So I'll go.
And that's all the time we have for the good.
Next time, guess what it is?
I'll do my number 2, and then you can do your number 2, and then we'll share our number 1.
Okay.
Okay, my number 2, and this might surprise Joe. I bet he doesn't even realize this will be high on the list. Is Spirit Island. Spirit Island is a game that completely deletes Pandemic for me. It is everything that Pandemic should have been and was not. It takes the core game of Pandemic and it makes all the decisions more interesting and gives you way, way, way more options as a player that are genuinely interesting. And those options combine in a level of complexity enough that you eliminate the alpha gainer problem because of all the stuff, the options that each player has, and a lot of them aren't known to the other players. You just can't alpha game this. There's too much going on. And its core, it's still basically Pandemic. There's more or less the type of flow of the game. All the players go around and do stuff to try to beat back the badness. The badness floods in, and oh my OMG. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that same give and take flow, it happens in this as it does in Pandemic. But this one, you have a character that's unique. It functions differently than all the other characters, which is true for Pandemic. But in Pandemic, your unique character has like 2 abilities. Other than that, it's identical to all the other ones. These are just, they're drastically different. They like, everything about them is different, like how they operate and everything. You've got these minor ability cards and major ability cards that are just all different, and they form a hand of cards for you. And you have to decide in what order you're going to use them. You have abilities that are in it to your character that you're going to be using, and you've got to decide how to use them. The entire mechanism of your character is unique, and you've got to figure out how to use it. There's no way someone can alpha game it. You've got too much to process on your own character, let alone let someone alpha game it. This is Pandemic for big boys, and it takes care of every issue I've ever had with Pandemic. And I absolutely love it. I can't wait to play it. I'm introducing it, hopefully, to a group of people tomorrow. I'm just in love with this. This is one of my favorite co-ops ever. Spirit Island, highly recommended. Get it, get it, get it.
All right. Yes. 100% behind you there, Trent. Everything that you said there. Whoa, dude. I had no idea because I don't know. Maybe I played this with you once, but man.
No, David,
brought it up.
Our mutual friend David introduced me to it at your house. and I had not played it to that point, and I absolutely fell in love, and I went and found a copy, and I've played it several times since. I've sat around and played this solo 3 or 4 times, just playing it by myself with different spirits, just to see how it works. It's amazing. This game's great. I love it. Yeah, try playing it 4-handed solo.
Jeez.
Go for it, Joe. I've done it twice.
I'm not surprised. Yeah. It is one that you can do that to. Yeah, it is ridiculous.
Yeah, give yourself a few hours, because you go from hand to hand figuring out what on earth you're going to do, and then you go into the next hand, everything's totally different. And it's really good. All right, back to TC for his next game.
I really struggled with. I mean, these next 2 games I talk about are very easily interchangeable, because I've enjoyed both of them equally. So since I figured what the next one's going to be, we're going to talk about together, I'll just throw this one out. And my next one is Time of Crisis, the Roman Empire in Turmoil, 235 AD to 254 AD. Now, everybody who's listening to the podcast knows me and Joe have been pretty much at each other's throats on this game.
On Time of Crisis, okay.
Time of Crisis. The reason this game rates so high for me, and the reason I play it, it is the one war game in my collection I can break out with non-war gamers if they're familiar with deck building, which a lot of people I play with do play a lot of Dominion, so they're familiar with the system. I can break this game out. They get the core concept of the game, and they can play it, and it's an historical war game that's easily accessible. And that is such a unique thing in this industry. I don't realize how rare that is for something to hit that way. There have been a few Academy games that do that. There's been 1775 Rebellion that does it really well. But every single game of Time of Crisis I broke out with non-war gamers have A, gone well, B, they've wanted to play it again, and C, they've wanted to play other war games in my collection. That alone is a tremendous feat for a game to pull off. Especially when I first break out, they're like, oh God, TC, another GMT game that's going to take all night to play. I'm not going to understand like that last coin game you broke out. I'm like, no. This is 2 hours. We're going to throw some dice. We're going to get each other space, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And it usually boils down that way. And I have just every single game of this I've enjoyed. I've torn the hell out of these cards to the point where I probably need to sleeve them. And yeah, it's just been, this game came out of nowhere. I didn't see it coming, especially from these 2 designers who did Sword of Rome, which was a highly complex CDC card-driven game that was based historically before this game. But wow, this game has just been, every time, an incredible amount of fun, easily approachable, and people want to play it again. If you can find it, try it. It's Time of Crisis by, get their designers here, Ray Farrell and Brad Johnson.
Mm-hmm. That's in my group of games that would probably be on my list of more plays.
Yeah. And the more you play it, the more I could just rant about this game. I know me and Joe will go on about how the dice are unfair or whatnot, but just in terms of getting people to understand the logistics of a war game and how battles work and stuff, just the basics of it, it's all there, and it's great. And it's easy to explain, and it plays fast. Wow, what more do you want out of a war game?
I'm sure. Where's your snarky answer to that question, Joe? Come on.
I'm trying to egg you on, Joe. Come on.
No, I'm just letting you have this, TC. I'm giving you your moment, man. It just, it was a cool system. I spent a lot of time learning it. I spent a lot of time playing it. It takes an awful long time to play, and it just buckles under the random dice and the random events. I mean, the randomness of the combat. I wish that there was more elements to the deck building, that to where the impact of the events, which are decided by a Catan style dice roll of whether or not which of the different which of the different sort of like neutral invading barbarians is going to sort of soup up and eventually attack. The fact that you lack any sort of control of that whatsoever, and also just the way that battles are so intentionally handled so that hits are on 5s and 6s or maybe 3s up to 6s. It just, to me, with all the time and effort that I was putting into the game, considering it played in about 3 to 4 hours every time, I just really wanted more from it. I feel like there's a great system, but to me, it's going to take a different game. So I really did like the system just like you do, TC. It's just that I did not want to spend that much time if it was going to include those types of elements, if that makes any sense.
Well, I thought it was interesting that it took a American war game to actually say, hey, instead of drawing cards randomly, maybe you can look through the cards you have in your deck and pull out what you want, because the rest of the game's so crazy, you need some type of control. And I love that. You're just like, okay, because you're going, I can do this awesome turn, but my next few are going to suck because they're going to be crappy cards. So how am I going to distribute these cards in my hand and execute what I want to do? Brilliant. That alone makes that game a top 10 game right there. That's the first deck builder I've ever seen do something like that. Okay.
Yeah, we're now here to let me just do a drum roll here, and you guys can just sing your title together. So 3, 2, and the number one game of 2017 is
Legend of the Five Rings.
Absolutely. This game, I have played this more than any game this year, and this game came out in October.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I played. It's the only game I played today.
Yeah, my Wednesday night game nights have been nothing but L5R for the past 8 weeks. Yeah, and I do not like constructible card games, and something about this one stuck. And that's even coming off of, I didn't even get to mention this one, is that Arkham Horror has an incredible campaign called Path to Carcosa, which is amazing. And even with that LCG, I like Legend of the Five Rings more. And that's saying something.
Yeah, Legend of the Five Rings is just solid from top to bottom. You feel like you have a ton of control over what's happening. I feel like I have more control over what's happening than I do in any other game of this type that I've played. But yeah, it still has this like ability to just wow you with the unexpected play all the time. Cards are beautiful. Theme is really interesting. The card art is fantastic. Just everything about it's interesting. Each clan has its own distinctive feel. There's only one clan that feels underwhelming. Other 6 are all distinctively interesting in their own way. Woe be to anyone who plays Unicorn, but
No, we got a guy playing Unicorn who's really, really good at it. I mean,
I've not seen anyone playing Unicorn well yet. I would like to see that.
Yeah, the guy who's really good playing Unicorn actually built his own website for this game called Bushy Builder. He's that into the game. He built his own website, could construct his own cards. It's like,
there you go. It's just thoroughly enjoyable. I am very glad I got into it and it's also something my son's getting into too. He and I sat around for like 2 hours today working on his Phoenix deck. He keeps going back and forth on what he wants to do with it. I think he's happy with it now. So that's good. And it's just a thoroughly enjoyable game.
Yeah, the lore's amazing. There's a story you can follow. If you're into it, if you're really into it, you can follow the decisions that are going on in a tournament. So you can only use like a particular role to build your deck. You can go as deep in this as you want. You're building 2 decks of at least 30 cards. So yeah, there is just so much to this, and I can't say every single, but most every game I've played, I've lost because of a bad tactical decision, not because of a bad card draw. And coming from a card game, that's pretty impressive.
Yep. Agree completely.
Yeah. And then my biggest complaint is that they rushed all those Dynasty packs out, because now I think 6 came out, and then the last one came out this week. I'm really looking forward to like it settling down a bit so I can go through and design, figure out how I want to play my crab, my scorpion, crane. But there is so much out there right now. It's mind blowing, and it's crazy.
Yeah, they haven't even announced what's coming next. No one really has any idea. There's like rumors, but I think it does need some time to settle down with the massive amount of cards that have come out in the last 6 weeks. But it's gonna it'll sit for a while, and then we'll do it. Let's do this.
And it could very easily become a lifestyle game, because in order to play this game really effectively, you have to know what these other clans are going to be able to do to you and how to counter it. So you could just play this over and over, and with the variability of how people are building their decks and everything, it's just out the roof. You could lose yourself in this game. And after playing this, I can see how people just play Magic now. I really can, because it's that there's a lot of depth to these type of things.
Yep. Completely agree.
And you haven't played it yet, Joe, have you? You are sad.
I still haven't. No, and I'm worried. I'm worried if I do though, because all the things you guys say make it sound awesome, and I just have so many. Like the last time I got into an LCG, I just still have all those cards. I still can't. I can't get myself to get back into it, and I can't get myself to get out of it. I'm just stuck in this limbo. And there's such amazing systems. But they require a type of dedication that if I got to play with another player that was as passionate about it as I was, if it just worked out like that, I feel like this would be a pinnacle of that sort of format. But unfortunately, I just never get to play games 2-player, hardly at all, very, very rarely. And because of that, I just unfortunately haven't even gotten a chance to play it once, let alone, get into it.
Well, I am definitely supporting my local game store now by both being into the Arkham Horror card game and Legend of the Five Rings, because I am giving them money once a month. It's like $30 once a month for the packs that are coming out. They're like $15 a pop. And so I have this big giant bag of Arkham that I play with Carissa, and I have this big giant bag I drag to Wednesday nights. It's sad state of affairs, Joe. It's sad.
Yeah, I started carrying mine in a cooler, which just seems to, for whatever reason, I tend to prefer the padded refrigerator bags to carry my games and keep them nice and cold.
And what's funny is after building decks for L5R, because you're building 2, I go back to Arkham. I'm like, oh, I only have to build one 30 card deck. That's refreshing.
Yeah, I know. It just seems to me like there'd be so many painful decisions, and that can turn some people off, but definitely not me. Everything that people have ever said about L5R has always made me feel like, if I could, this would be what I would do.
Yeah, it's as a war gamer, it's got my tactical decisions. As I can just build a deck however crazy I want. And sometimes I'll just throw something crazy and just bring it out and I get absolutely destroyed with it. But it's fun to watch the other player go, why is that in your deck? And try to come with some logical reason for it. And you're like, I don't know. I just threw it in there. So that's a lot of fun too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, goodness gracious, guys. This has been an amazing bunch of games to tell people about for 2017. I feel like there's been a high bar set because I told you guys I didn't think I could put one together this quickly, but man, in I don't know how long you guys had, but this must have been something you had in your mind for quite a while, because all the games that you guys mentioned sounded to me like ones that were either ones that I could share in you with your love, or I understand that what you like about a game is something that is exactly what you guys are looking for. I know there's a lot of people, just like all of us, that would align more to a certain taste profile. And I think, for the ones that you guys enjoyed that I maybe wouldn't be the biggest fan, I still understand and respect them, even if they aren't for me. But that wasn't the case with most of these. You had one in there, Trent. There was one game that just blew my mind, and I'd never heard of it. What was it? Illimat?
Illimat. ILLIMAT. It's like a trick taking.
Illimat. It was nothing like anything else. And that one to me just sounded so bizarre. It's tough. It reminded me of Jiraku, which was that other trick-taking game. But just running through all the other ones, TC, we heard a few classics that got some reprints, some old things getting some love. I like to hear that. And just Trent, it's been interesting, to see how you sort of unpacked, because many of those games that made it to your list are ones I played with you, and it's interesting to hear how you reacted to them, because sometimes I'm not 100% sure. So that's what's so great about hearing from you on in this format.
The GBU is now a proud member of Punchboard Media. Escape the tower at punchboardmedia.com.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Sweet.
Are we going to hype anything?
Yeah, we got some hypes coming.
Okay.
And why don't I kick it off here, because I'm gonna hype the thing that I said I was gonna hype, which is this Mythic Battles Pantheon. The Kickstarter exclusive is coming in a box called Pandora, and it quadruples the content of the base game. So I paid $100 for this Kickstarter, and it comes with 4 gods in the base game. The stretch goals add another 9 of them, I believe, or 8 plus like a Titan that's like this huge miniature that functions as another one. So I mean, you're talking like triple the gods. It takes 5 heroes from the base game and adds 15. It takes 4 monsters, adds 13. So I mean, you're talking more than quadruple. It adds a bundle of new troops. I mean, you're talking miniatures wise, 87 miniatures, I want to say, versus the original, which only came with 37. So you're talking about adding more than double the miniatures to this game. And so far, I've been reading the cards, which they shared in the updates as the Kickstarter was live. And at that point, I didn't really understand the way the game worked. But now that I do, like those elements were designed really well. So I'm very excited for that. My other one is kind of almost like maybe a quick 10-second review, and that's of Stop Thief, the new version, because it's kind of a hype.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm ever gonna. Well, I don't think I would review it. And that's just because it really is still centered around that gimmick, TC. And I don't know what that game that you've got plays like, but I just played a game of this with Caroline, and it really is like. So what the app does is the app tells you one of the 4 locations on the board, and it tells you that one of these 4 locations there's a robber, and then you flip a card off the deck and it tells you like this robber has this special rule, and then there's like 12 different ones that tells you how much your reward is for catching them. But you're going to be basically using a system of hand management that definitely beats roll and move, which I feel like the original game must have had roll and move.
Yeah, the original game had roll and move. You roll dice to move all over the board.
So instead of this, there's no dice in this game. Instead, you use like a hand of cards where when you play one of the cards, you pick them all up. So it's kind of similar in a way to like, Spirit Island or mainly like Concordia. But these cards are not vastly they're not like, I mean, some of them have you moving, other ones have you doing special abilities, but they're all unique decks to each of the different 6 characters involved in the game, which I think is it's all the things that have been changed, quote unquote, about the game sound to me like cool things, but it still is centered around this idea of like, basically it uses a gimmick of using sound to tell you essentially the information is just, here are the different options. So like, that because it's in this area, since the robber's in this area, there's like 6 different places they could be that they could rob from. And so okay, well, it's these 6 options. Then their first move tells you, well, I know that they went this direction, this direction, this direction. So you go on sort of piecing it together and trying to decide which of the paths that they're on. And it really is kind of, I don't know, it's more interesting than just say like, a dice roll, but it's no Scotland Yard, and that's what's kind of most similar to, but it definitely has some interesting gimmicks. I think it looks like they're going to do some interesting things with the app. And I am excited to see, they're going to add like a solo game. They're going to add more variants and stuff to it. The elements of design that are here are cool improvements, but it's a 38-year-old base game, and that's, I think, precisely what Restoration Games is going for. So I'm not going to say anything more about it. I've already said probably more than I intended, but it's a cool little game. I'm probably going to be bringing it to my gamers club at the school to have those kids check it out, because it definitely seems like it's one for people that have played a lot of mass market games. I think they're going to be introduced to a few elements, but it's still going to feel largely like the type of game, like Clue or something that's on the level of like, it feels like a roll and move game where they took out the roll and move and made it better, but it still has that core, of that specific type of game.
Well, I'm sure it actually sounds like glass breaking. It says some weird digital sound. I think that's glass breaking on this machine. Let me check the readout. Yeah. The weirdest thing that I started thinking about this game, and the thing where the whole game kind of breaks down thematically, is that you're in the same room with the thief, and yet you can't see him, right? You're like, I'm in the same room with this guy. I can't see him? What, is he cloaked? Is he invisible? What's going on here? Why can't we see him? We're in the same room. Is it dark?
He's hiding in the corner and waiting.
Yeah, but it's a fun light deduction game.
Mm-hmm. I would say that, a fun light deduction game, sort of where you're deducing something based on like the randomness of an app. Mm-hmm. And it definitely is something that it does need an app to be able to function. And I think that it uses it well. I think the changes are cool. So yeah, Restoration Games, I think, succeeded on everything that they wanted to do. I would have to say it's a big success. Whether or not it was for me, like TC, I blame you for this game being in my collection, because you talked about finding the what is it, the
the original Parker Brothers
original at
version?
the thrift store, and then I saw it on Game Surplus, and I needed it to fill an order, and I was like, it also just seemed like one that I thought it would be fun to try with like non-gamers, and I do think it's going to work for that.
Yeah, and you could take it out, and my kids like Stop Thief, so that's a game I'm glad I have in my collection. It's nothing I would break out with heavy gamers or anything, but for what is it? It's fun.
Yeah, I think you should try the new version. I think you're going to like it. I really like how they did each of the different players has a different set of cards. It's really a cool thing that way. The rest of the core gameplay, I think they pretty much conserved it, though. All right. That was my hype, and you guys each have a different looking hype here. I think, TC, you didn't have one when I went to go paste everything, so I just jokingly put on that you were going to play A Nun Walks Into a Bar, the dice game.
No, the game I want to talk about is we rented it. We're going to play it this weekend, and hopefully I can report about it next episode, and that is Legacy of Dragonholt. I'm really curious about this one because, as you may know, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective is one of Carissa's favorite games. This game is supposedly Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective with the D&D theme thrown on it. So we're going to give it a shot. We're going to see. Hopefully I can get Carissa on next week or the week after to talk about our first experience with it and see if it's going to be a worthwhile game. So there we go. We'll let you know how it is. Legacy of Dragonholt.
Cool. Yeah, I'm interested. Any experience with that yet, Trent?
Nope.
It's one of those. It's kind of like the Legend of Drizzt or whatever, right? Is it in that same vein?
It's a Fantasy Flight game, so it's set in the Runebound universe. So you've got Runebound, Rune Wars, all those things.
Yeah, Descent as well, right?
Yeah, Descent. Yeah, so it's very, very generic Dungeons and Dragons, and we'll see if they can't elevate it with this plot. Carissa will be the final word on this one. If she can make through the first, we'll have her play the first one and see what she thinks about the writing and all that stuff. And so if she comes in and just totally craps all over it, we know to avoid this one. And thank goodness we rented it first.
Cool. So it sounds like Carmen from Game Surplus just got to play that one with Jeff Gamble over this last weekend, and
Elaine quit.
Yeah, Elaine quit because they both remained in character. So, yeah.
Oh,
well,
maybe we should get Carissa and Elaine on together, and we'll see so watch them rip on this thing. Could be fun.
All right, for sure. Well, now we're going to hear about Trent's interest in apparently taking a look at another legacy game, which this is the one that I was talking about earlier, is like almost feels like it's just disappearing without a squeak. But Trent, would you tell us that? You're looking forward to this one though?
I think this has actually weirdly the same issue that I described earlier, in that it's not what people are expecting in their head now from legacy games. I think people are expecting in their head that they're going to be pure co-op, and this is not co-op. And I'm talking about Charterstone. Charterstone is a worker placement Euro game. And my impression was from other games by Stonemaier Games is that it probably would never be that heavy. But then someone I know and trust said that they played through it, and the last couple of games reminded them a lot of Ora et Labora. And
oh wow,
I was like, this really turns into that. And they're like, yeah. They said the first couple of games are like Lords of Waterdeep-ish, like that all the complexity. I'm like, and then they said, and the mid game felt like the middle games felt a lot like Kalos, like it was very tight and mean. And then like the later games felt like Ora et Labora or like Le Havre, and that there was 50 billion options, and you had to kind of roll what you were going to do. You had to kind of like, how do I filter through all these? That got me interested. That was enough to get me interested in seeing how it all works. I don't know what my group is to play this with, though. That's my only difficulty. I'm very interested in playing it. I just don't know yet what my group is to play it. I don't think my family is quite there yet. But yeah, I'm very interested in seeing how that all works out.
Yeah, I'm very curious about this one too. I'm curious what you say about it because I saw a copy at the game store and I flipped over and I saw chibi characters and I was like, uh-oh. But if you're describing it like a heavy Euro game, that's with that theme, that's intriguing. I'm curious to see where this one falls.
I wonder if it'll turn into the next Seafall, where you can find a copy of it for like, pretty much somebody on the street will beg you to take it from them. They will give you like all of their life savings if you'll just please take Seafall from them.
I don't know about that. I got the impression that the people I knew that played it quite liked it. So.
Oh no,
this sounds.
I think that what you said, Trent, is that this is really cool, and it sounds to me like it might be more tailored towards like you and I than it is maybe towards the folks that are boosting these ratings of legacy games all the way to the top of the charts. And maybe I am one of those. Who knows? Maybe I'm on both sides of this. I don't even know. I don't know how to. I don't even. There's no labels for me anymore. I'm except for broken.
Except for Joe.
Broken, failed. Yes.
Well, everything I've seen about it looks interesting. I mean, I just need someone to play it and tell me about it, Trent, please.
If I can figure out a consistent group that would consistently play it and everybody would be there over a consistent period to play it, I'd be all over it.
Nice.
I just don't know that I have it right now. My Gloomhaven group is the most obvious for me, but we're like waist deep in Gloomhaven right now. Mm-hmm. And so something like Charterstone would have to wait. So I don't know.
Well, if you wait, you can find it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I know. We've got Gloomhaven, and then we got all these legacy games we actually need to finish. So that's going to be a while before I can hit that one.
Cool stuff, man. Yeah. I'm very interested in Charterstone. You've actually almost sold me on Charterstone. I'm like, holy crap, a game that slowly turns into Ort Labora from like a simple, it's just, for me, honestly, the Stonemaier games is what kind of holds me back. I feel like Stonemaier games makes games that are really great for like, for pleasing a lot of people and being like nice, like sort of compromise games, but I've yet to really play, and this is including Scythe, and I'm yet to really play a Stonemaier game that has been much more than one that I played, thought, it's pretty nice, and then moved on. I'm still just worried that I still want more personality from these from a Stonemaier game than I usually feel like I'm actually getting. I feel like it's almost like a game where it's been developed to the point of being less interesting.
I can see that. Well, I'm needless to say, I'm still curious.
Yeah, me too, dude. Me too. You almost sold it to me, Trent, but I think that maybe what I just said will keep me strong and not click add to cart.
Yeah, you need to add those L5R cards to your cart instead. Just go ahead and just click on that.
Well, since TC said it, now I can't do it. Great. Thanks, TC. That was a real problem for me. Now you fixed it.
That fixed it? Okay. Glad I can help you out there, buddy.
I'm just kidding. It's great talking with you guys. This is bringing us to a close to this episode. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. I've been host Joe Silent. I've been joined by
me, TC,
and me, Trent.
Yeah, and just me too, and a bunch of awkward silence when these guys were trying to figure out, is he gonna say our names, or are we just gonna be like cool, or should we say our names? And you know what? I want to keep you guessing, just like our listeners. Hopefully that's what you're getting here from The Good, the Board, and the Ugly. Hopefully you have a great week of gaming, and catch us next week here on The Good, the Board, and the Ugly. Night, everybody.